Well, there is a school lunch program run by the Department of Agriculture, right? And I still remember, we get these big blocks of cheese, coming through schools, not very healthy. So that money's still coming into the school systems, right?
It is, yeah. So if you look back at the history of the National School Lunch Program, you see how the system came to look the way it does now. School meal programs first started to pop up in the Great Depression as a way that communities could put underemployed people to work and start bringing some money back to the farm economy, and could meet needs children had of basic hunger and nutrition security. Then the program got expanded nationally in 1946 in the wake of the World War, with a real emphasis on how do we make use of all of the agricultural production that we have in this country. All the World War II bomb factories became anhydrous ammonia fertilizer factories, and we had this huge amount of agricultural production happening in America, and we needed to find some ways to prop up the agricultural markets and put those commodities to work. And one of the ways that happened was through the National School Lunch Program. That then played out for quite a while as a kind of let's have as much food as possible kind of go through our system in this country. But we missed a lot of what actually the role of food in school should be, which is about health, not just about access to calories. And we missed that school food can be even more than an engine for health. It can be an engine for environmental sustainability. If we're more intentional about how we source the food that's going to school meals, it can be a source of racial justice and social justice, like the Black Panther Party showed when it innovated with school breakfast programs across the West Coast. And it can really be a source of joy for kids to come together around the table, connect across lines of difference, build a sense of community in school. And that requires a fundamentally different approach to the school meal system than we initially put in place with that kind of drive for all-out production and using up of commodities like the government cheese you're talking about.
Well, I think it's becoming student-focused rather than input-focused. Seems to me to be something you guys are focusing on. Identifying the problem. In a system change world, you laid out pretty well. 1 in 5 kids struggle with hunger, and 1 in 3 are overweight or obese, and 1 in 2 kids of color develop type 2 diabetes during their life. So that's a big problem, and you've chosen to go after that through some unique strategies, a couple different ways. So tackling tell us about those.
Yeah, tackling that challenge, first of all, has required us to think with fresh eyes about who do we exist for, and who should the school meal program exist for? And the answer is it's for kids. It's not for farmers. It's not for the hardworking folks on the lunch line who put school meals on the tray every day, though those two groups matter a lot. It's not for principals and superintendents and teachers and making their lives easier, though that matters a lot. It really is for children. It's for students. And in particular, school meal programs exist for kids who are most deserving of equity, most in need of interventions that advance equity for them. And that means Black and brown kids in particular. It means kids in low-income communities, kids in rural communities. And so part one for us has been saying, what would it look like to reorient the system of school meals around that stakeholder of students and children and make it student-driven, as you were saying. And then I think the other question has been, how do we make sense of the system as it exists today? What has shaped that system historically, and also how's it driven now? And the reality is there's a food system that plays out and shapes how we eat in this country, how we farm, how we process food, how we grow food, who has access to high-quality food and healthy food. And then there's an education system in this country, which exists to get the future to the place it needs to be by investing in kids. But it does that mostly through academic channels still, and with not very much attention to the holistic needs of children and communities and families. And the reality is, when you push those two systems together, you end up with a real tangle, which is a slice of the food system that's trapped in the context of an education system that fundamentally devalues food and pretends that it's some kind of cost center that should be minimized, rather than seeing it as a value center that could be unlocked in a way that would benefit kids really powerfully.
Well, in system change models, a lot of people work on return on investment. It seems to me there's a big return on investment here, whether it's in kids who aren't hungry, able to learn more effectively during the day, right? Or whether it's lower health costs, or whether it's, long-term, productivity, overall, in the kind of things that students learn and do and are able to graduate into. So, how do you look at that return on investment? And you also have other inputs. You have the AmeriCorp program that you support. You have the policy model. So how do you kind of talk about that return from this effort to make it more than just a cost center?
Yeah. So if you look at what happens over the long term, if kids grow up not having access to nourishing meals and not building a healthy relationship to food, we see in the research that kids attain less education, are out sick more at work, progress less in their careers, and are forced out of the workforce earlier and die younger with fewer dreams fulfilled. I mean, the long-term implications of lack of access to nourishing meals, whether that plays out through hunger and food insecurity or plays out through diet-related challenges over the long term, the impacts are real and long-term. At the same time, if you think about how efficient a lever this school meal program could be for making a positive difference on those challenges, it's pretty tremendous. Right now, the annual economic toll of the way we eat in this country due to health challenges is $1.4 trillion a year. And if we can make a dent in that $1.4 trillion annual cost through the lever of the school meal program, which is a $17 billion annual cost, the return on investment is pretty huge. So our sense is that this is a really underutilized tool in the pencil box. And there's been interesting studies out of California recently that looked at schools and districts that changed from a lower quality, less healthy, these are complicated terms, but we'll use them for now, school meal provider to a greater investment in a higher quality school meal provider. The academic performance gains that happened in those schools and districts was meaningful and happened at a much lower price point than a comparable tutoring intervention that would have gotten you the same academic gain. So we miss the fact that school meals aren't just a lever for student health. They really are a lever for student success and student academic performance. And I'm eager for education leaders to see and recognize the importance of school meals as one of the things they can invest in to prepare students for the future ahead of them.
It seems to me there's an opportunity for that simple ROI analysis to, like in malaria, there's a 15-to-1 payback ratio for using a bed net, long-term GDP impact. And everybody started using that number. It'd be interesting if there's an equivalent ratio you could come up with that everybody kind of understands, per student or, per meal or, something like that.